with excellent and fast legal systems, and as I said, a high quality of life for people who want to sample it. Institutions, and when I wrote the transparencies, British institutions. I took then the British away because I felt that it was a bit too colonial, but it is actually British institutions, but that were very flexible and adaptable, leading the way for constant restructuring of the country. As you may know, also the Indians have the British bureaucracy, but they have polished and groomed it to the ultimate bureaucracy. Nothing can be more bureaucratic than the Indian bureaucracy. Singapore has gone the other way and has tried to be flexible and has created a system whereby there is constant restructuring. There is high transparency in planning and accountability with lots of KPIs. KPI is probably the most used word in Singapore. KPI stands for key performance indicators. So you see the transparency and there is a very high level of accountability. And then a commitment to high quality education for all. In other words, nobody should be deprived of high quality education because of lack of money or other social reasons why people would not have access to it. A strong belief that education is very important. And while I don't want to take in a political position here, teachers are among the highest paid civil servants in Singapore. Thank you. And I'm open for all kinds of questions.
Simple question, but if they have such a low government, then presumably they also have low taxes, but how do they support the education system that way? Do you know?
Well, the tax rate is 20%. It's basically, I mean, for the first 10,000 euros, you don't pay any taxes, but beyond that, it's a flat tax rate of 20% that everybody pays. Companies theoretically pay that too, but most companies get a tax holiday for the first 10 years of activities. So companies do not pay that much tax. It's basically personal income tax, and secondly, a sales tax of 7% across the board. It's not like the VAT in Europe where you have different types of rates. It's a sales tax of 7%. Third source of income, so personal income tax, sales tax. Third rate source of income is that virtually all land belongs to the government. That's a typical British situation. You probably know that also in London, everything is built with leases of 99 years, but the land still belongs to a large extent either to the royal family or some other rich families in London or the government. In both Hong Kong and Singapore, land belongs to the government. Land that is then rented out to companies and to individuals for building apartments, and that is a big source of revenue. Currently, the spending in health is actually pretty low. The total spending on health as percentage of GDP is about 4%. For our societies here in Europe, it's around 8 to 9%, and in the United States is about 12 to 13%, I believe. So spending on health is still very low. Spending on pension plans is virtually non-existing because you save for your pension plan while you work. So there are lots of areas that typically we here in Europe have to pay for, where the government doesn't pay for in Singapore, and they have taken that money and spend it heavily in education and research and development. It's a different allocation of the limited resources that any government has.
Kuidas on saavutatud olukord, et korruptsiooni pole?
It is not natural for Chinese not to be corrupt. So it has nothing to do with philosophy, racial, or the DNA or whatever. It is not natural. So there one has to give all the credit to the founder of the country, Lee Kuan Yew, who was for about 25 years prime minister of the country, and who with his team, because it's a team of about 10 to 15 people that worked with him, have said from the beginning, we will only survive as a third world country without any resources. We will only survive if there is no corruption. So it's a statement from the beginning, and a very strict statement. That is accompanied by very high salaries for civil servants and ministers, The logic there being, if you earn a lot of money, you have no need for corruption. And secondly, very tough legal action against people who are actually corrupt.